Welcome to Global Truth. This is your host, Dr. Nasir Baig. Muted under the white noise of US-Iran war and ceasefire headlines and behind the scenes of American political theater, a deeply alarming geopolitical maneuver is unfolding. One that has left international political scholars utterly stunned. Hidden deep within the drafts of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2027, NDAA 2027, a covert amendment has been introduced. This clause lays the foundational framework for a permanent structural merger between the United States and Israeli militaries. This is not a fleeting news cycle destined to fade away. It comes at a historical juncture where everyday American citizens are taking to the streets in unprecedented numbers, protesting against the ongoing Israeli atrocities, the devastation in Gaza and Lebanon, and systematic biases embedded within Israeli institutional policy. Before discussing the amendment, that how it is being proposed that the two militaries should be merged, let's see how the story actually started. After the United Nations partition plan, Israel declared its independence in 1948. Harry Truman almost immediately recognized Israel, though Washington's comprehensive military and strategic patronage truly solidified in the mid-60s under Lyndon B. Johnson, and Israel gained the status of an indispensable American outpost in the Middle East, a strategic asset to counter Soviet influence and maintain a watchful eye over the oil-rich Arab world. In 1954, the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs was established, later rebranded in 1959 as AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Under the Foreign Agents Registration Act FARA of 1938, any organization actively lobbying the US government on behalf of a foreign power's political interest is legally mandated to register as a foreign agent. However, AIPAC utilized highly sophisticated legal maneuvers to bypass this requirement entirely. By framing itself strictly as an organization funded solely by domestic American citizens, AIPAC carved out a unique loophole. This allows it to operate deep within the American political ecosystem, completely free from the rigorous transparency, auditing, and restrictions imposed on registered foreign entities, and this is true even today. AIPAC weaponized the American electoral system by mastering the utilization of Public Actions Committee, which channeled millions of dollars into political campaigns. The stark reality of American politics is that campaign finance heavily dictates electoral outcomes. Historical data confirms that roughly 94% of US congressional races are won by the candidate who raises and spends the most capital. AIPAC systematically turned this 94% reality into a tool for absolute legislative leverage. The system functions as a highly calculated financial loop. Let's see how this loop starts. Every year, $3.8 billion of US taxpayers' money is given to Israel in terms of defense aid. This is not a casual year-to-year discretionary donation. It is governed by a legally binding Memorandum of Understanding MOU. This institutionalized pipeline traces back to September 1975, when both nations signed a historic strategic agreement. Subsequently, the US Congress passed statutory legislation requiring the American executive branch to permanently safeguard Israel's qualitative military edge QME. Under this law, the United States is legally bound to ensure that Israel receives military hardware vastly more advanced and lethal than any combination of neighboring Arab states. The current $3.8 billion annual package was finalized in 2016 under the Obama administration, establishing a fixed 10-year framework spanning from 2019 to 2028, mandated annually through Foreign Military Financing FMF. I want you to keep this expiration year of 2028 in mind, as it is the catalyst for what is happening right now. So let's go back to the loop. What happens is that this $3.8 billion and sometimes even more, this money, this guaranteed security insulation, frees up immense capital for Israel, which is redirected back into the American domestic political arena via AIPAC and allied mega PACs, such as the United Democracy Project. This money is deployed to heavily fund the campaigns of staunchly pro-Israel politicians. Conversely, if an incumbent or challenger dares to critique US policy towards Israel, record-breaking amounts of adversarial funding are funneled to their direct opponent, ending their political career. The message across the Senate and House of Representatives is absolute. Criticize Israel, and your political viability is erased. And any dissenting voices who challenge this dynamic are instantly targeted by mainstream media operations, branded with labels of anti-Semitism and systematically marginalized. But the global landscape is shifting. The raw reality of the humanitarian crises in Gaza and Lebanon is bypassing traditional corporate media filters, reaching billions of global citizens directly via platforms like TikTok, X, YouTube, Instagram. Prominent independent journalists, political commentators are openly questioning the basic loyalties of the US Congress, asking abruptly, does your allegiance lie with America or with Israel? Faced with this growing wave of global skepticism and shifting public opinion, Zionist think tanks are experiencing profound panic. They recognize that they have lost the absolute monopoly on information. Crucially, they fear that when the current 10-year FMF agreement expires in 2028, the shifting political tide may jeopardize the automatic renewal of the annual billions, loosening their iron grip on American foreign policy. To counter this vulnerability, a sweeping legislative maneuver has been introduced. One designed to ensure that the United States can never realistically untangle itself from Israel's military apparatus. Silently embedded within the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, spearheaded by figures like Republican Mike Rogers and Democrat Adam Smith, lies Section 224, officially designated as the US-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. This is not a standard, run-of-the-mill defense cooperation pact. It represents a sweeping, unprecedented integration of the militaries and defense industrial bases of both nations. It is built upon three highly consequential pillars. First, the unchecked transfer of Pentagon secrets. This statute mandates the American defense officials systematically share the United States' most sensitive, cutting-edge military research in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, biotechnology, and quantum computing with Israel. It calls for an absolute data fusion of their military information systems, meaning American taxpayer resources will directly fuel a singular, unified war machine of US and Israel. Second is the anchoring of the US domestic economy. Israel is granted the authority to establish its own defense manufacturing facilities directly on American soil. The strategic intent here is clear. If a future member of Congress attempts to vote to halt weapons or funding to Israel due to public pressure, the lobby can instantly threaten that representative's district with immediate factory closures and massive local unemployment. It effectively hostages American jobs to Israeli military policy. Third is engineered American dependency. How? Israeli defense firms will deeply integrate their own proprietary intellectual property and softwares and algorithms directly into core US weapon systems. This ensures that the American military will become fundamentally dependent on Israeli technical cooperation just to operate its own domestic hardware. Former State Department officials such as Josh Paul have warned that this bill is explicitly designed to weave Israel so deeply into the fabric of the US defense supply chain that Washington will lose the structural capacity to ever say no to Israeli actions. And this leads to the erosion of sovereignty. If this amendment passes into law, it will mark the formal surrender of remaining American foreign policy autonomy. It represents a structural lock-in, blinding the world's foremost superpower to a state facing widespread international condemnation, global isolation, and active arrest warrants from the International Criminal Code for humanitarian violations. This merger essentially binds American service members to a highly specific, aggressive, ideological agenda of the Zionists. If domestic citizens rise in protest against these foreign policies in future, they will face a highly integrated, automated domestic and foreign security apparatus. The resulting framework will leave an external lobby holding the keys to the world's most sophisticated arsenal, bankrolled permanently by American wealth. While America is experiencing a deep shift towards skepticism regarding these Israeli policies, institutional frameworks are moving to permanently codify this relationship into unalterable law. Whether the American public will use its political leverage to halt this comprehensive integration that will result in devastation of America remains the defining question of today's modern geopolitics. What are your thoughts on this unprecedented military merger? Let me know in the comments below. Take good care of yourself. Thank you.